Well, welcome to Beccaro and Hook. We invite you to check us out on our YouTube page and, of course, our Rumble page. And we can't forget about Patriot, patriot.tv/DHED. That's Beccaro Hook, Enlightened Dissent. So patriot.tv/DHED. Welcome to the show. It's good to be back after taking a week off. Hope everybody had a fine Thanksgiving and wasn't too many arguments around the dinner table, and everybody is feeling good and ready for the big Christmas season and the new year. And as we look at that, well, we're looking at a few things. Tom, first of all, hello there, sir. It's great to see you, brother. Hope you had a wonderful.
Great to be on. The politics doesn't wait a single minute. It's at the center of our lives, which was never our founders' intent, but that gives us a lot to talk about.
Certainly does, and a lot has happened since we last spoke. We took the Thanksgiving break, but it's good to be back. And since we've last spoken, Tom, well, Hunter Biden has been pardoned. Imagine that, and they all act shocked about it. That's what's so funny. We've talked about that going back several weeks now, saying that's inevitable. That's going to happen. But now there's some rumbling that President Biden, while he is still President Biden, should make blanket pardons against the likes of Adam Schiff, Liz Cheney, what's his name? Adam, what's other Republicans? Killinger, what the hell his name was? What was his name?
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Adam, whatever. He's a forgotten commodity.
Fauci and maybe
Fauci,
some others.
Sure. All of them. They just blanket pardon all of them. Wouldn't that be political suicide if they did that, Tom?
Well, first of all, you don't pardon people who aren't guilty.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, I mean, this blows me away. Are they really going to pardon these people who claim they've done nothing wrong and have been righteous all along? I do think it would cast a pretty dark pall over the Democrat Party, and it takes away their, as Charlemagne said, I refuse to put those other two words at the end of it. As Charlemagne said that, it takes away their, quote, moral high ground, end quote. I never thought they had the moral high ground, but are they really, is this their plan to do all of this? And then of course, as they say it, they sit there and they say, well, we fear Trump is going to go after his enemies. Okay, so you're admitting these guys are enemies and that there are grounds to go after them. So to answer your question, yeah, I think this would look really bad for the Democrats, but that doesn't mean I don't think they'll do it.
Yeah. By the way, Adam Kinzinger, that's the name I was looking for. Yeah, I agree. I think it would make it look, make them look pretty ridiculous. But Tom, this is as predictable as the sun rising in the east. Nobody at CNN, MSNBC, all the alphabet networks, nobody is really focusing on why these people should be pardoned. They're just saying they should be pardoned because Trump is vindictive. And so what do they turn their fire on? They turn their fire on Trump's cabinet picks. Most notably, of course, we saw Matt Gaetz bag out, which turned out to be a stroke of genius because I think Pam Bondi is a better pick for that slot anyway. But now they're going full tilt boogie after Pete Hegseth. And I want you to see this clip so we can get your comments on it. Senator Rick Scott from the great Sunshine State of Florida was on with Jake Tapper, one of the biggest hacks at CNN. And Jake Tapper is really going after Rick Scott for not waiting for the FBI to give a full background check on Pete Hegseth. First of all, that begs the question, how many people believe anything the FBI says? Apparently, Jake Tapper does, though. Check this out, Jake and Rick Scott on CNN.
Senator Scott, you were among a group of Republican senators who met with Hegseth on Monday. This morning you posted on Twitter or X, quote, "I support President Trump's pick, and I look forward to his swift confirmation." So you don't even want to wait for that FBI background check? You don't want to hear from members of the veterans group alleging alcohol abuse, sexual misconduct? I mean, I know Hegseth denies any wrongdoing, but don't you want to get some more vetting done?
Well, first off, number one, Donald Trump won the election. Number two, this is his nominee. All right. We know we have to make changes. Number 3, Pete is a great candidate. Here's something: I respect people that put on the uniform and led troops at war. He went to Iraq, he went to Afghanistan. He knows people that died. He knows people that were injured. He got out. He's fought for veterans since he got out. These are anonymous accusations. If these people are credible, Jake, ask him to come on your show. Ask him to come on and explain these things. Pete did an op-ed. He's explained this. I've talked to him about it. I've met with him. I've known him. It's disgusting to me exactly what's going on. These people are trying to disparage somebody that has. Did they go serve? No. Did they put their life on the line? No. This is ridiculous what these people are doing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was the perfect answer. And at that point, he could have just unclipped his lapel mic and walked away, because that was a great answer.
Mic drop.
Yeah, just a boop, I'm out. But of course, Tapper wasn't done. It went on and on. We're not going to bore you with the rest of the clip, because Tapper is basically saying, but an FBI background check, an FBI background check. They didn't say that for the transgender that was accused of stealing women's luggage in airports. Where was the calls for the background check for him or her or whatever? Where were the background checks for a lot of these Biden picks? I mean, I don't want to go down the road, down the tit for tat thing, but Pete Hegseth, everybody that has gone on the record and spoken about Pete Hegseth, that's willing to put their face and their name on the line, has said he's a great guy. This is all BS. These claims of alcohol and sexual abuse are pure BS. And it certainly does smack of that. It looks like they're trying to take this, they're trying to kneecap him, don't you think, Tom?
Yeah, 100%. But, you know, my reaction is, does anybody really think the FBI doesn't have a file on Pete Hegseth?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course they do. And if they really had something, they would leak it.
Good point.
That's how distrustful we are towards the FBI and their activities. Right? They wanted to choose who could be president of the United States. Hillary Clinton clearly violated the law. If you and I did what she did, we'd be in jail. But they let her run for president by not prosecuting her for violating the law that so many have been in jail for. On the other hand, look what they did to Trump to try and stop him. So what? Am I supposed to believe that they've cleaned their own house? No.
Yeah.
So there is a file. But this is anonymous. If one person came out and could actually demonstrate this stuff, instead of just making these accusations that he drinks here or he drinks there, you know. But look, the Democrats need a scalp. They need to be able to tell their people, we took someone down. This isn't about the truth. This is about power politics. That's where we are today. The Republicans went along with Pete Buttigieg, whose experience was being pothole Pete and putting him in charge of transportation and allocating $8 billion to build a single charging station. Suddenly they're worried about whether the person can do the job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
and the reason why Pete's got to stay there and fight this out is because if he went away, then they'd go after someone else, and then someone else, and then someone else. So this is the best the Democrats have. And as they can, James, look, we were talking about pardoning. James Biden's going to be pardoned. You know it. I know it. They have no grounds to stand on.
Yeah. And I do think that of all of the people inside the Beltway that are very, very nervous about this coming January, probably no one more so, or no group of people more so than the 7th floor in Quantico. They are shaking in their boots. Pete Hegseth has promised to shake things up. I have no doubt that he will. And they are nervous. And to your point, Tom, if they did have this info on Pete, which they no doubt have something on him, but they don't have much because they haven't leaked it. So they're just allowing these anonymous sources to go on Joy Reid and Jake Tapper, and hell, they'll probably be on The View before long, and just spew this garbage. I think that if anything, all of this has actually helped Pete Hegseth. I think he's going to be confirmed. What do you think?
I think we yet another show, and you made a Joy Reid reference. Are you on her payroll? I just got to ask that question.
Well, she's just
so no.
Bad.
I think he's going to hang in there if no one actually comes forward with ironclad steel evidence of some crime, then he's going to be fine. And that doesn't exist. So I'm trying not to cough here. I've made it through almost the entire segment here. There you go. But no, I think he is going to be fine. And, you know, we may have talked about this before. When January starts, they're going to hit the ground running on so many issues at once. There was this story about how the press is already can't keep up, right? They're going to hit the ground on so many things. And by the way, our guest, Luis Alvarado, will be talking about the border and how that policy will affect votes of the Latino community going forward in his mind. But the reality is that the Democrats are looking for a victory here somewhere, and that's all they got.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be very much. I mean, they're going for the scalp, and it doesn't look like he seems to be riding away from them. So we'll see how it plays out. Just to circle back on the Matt Gaetz withdrawal, which we kind of, I think of all of the cabinet picks, the Matt Gaetz one was probably the one that sent real shivers to everybody, as well as the Pete Hegseth. But Matt Gaetz steps aside. He voluntarily says, you know what, I'm out of here. I don't need this in my life anymore. The bad news for Republicans is they've lost that House seat. They'll probably get it back. It's a deep red district where Gaetz is from in Florida. So he'll be replaced by a Republican. But Pam Bondi steps in. What do you think about Pam Bondi taking that position, Tom?
Yeah, well, first, they're going to have, in January, they're going to have a one-person majority because he has poached so many people from the House. Yeah. And they have to get these special elections in to build this up. Look, I'm fine with Pam Bondi. She's forthright, a smart woman. She knows the job, which is important. Look, at the end of the day, the Democrats want to cast this as, oh, you're going after your enemies instead of exposing what really happened. And what is it they say about sunshine? It's the best disinfectant. Yeah. She does need to expose some of these things. Whether that means that she pursues any of these things, maybe not. Maybe Trump is magnanimous about it and moves on. But nevertheless, they need to open up the shades in that building and let everyone see what happened and move on from there. All right. So that's enough for this segment. I hope you'll come back. We, my good friend and Latino consultant Luis Alvarado will talk about what really happened with the Latino vote, and more importantly, is it a trend or is it a realignment? I think that's the question we need to understand, and how, if it's not a realignment yet, what would it take to do that? This is Del Beccaro and Hook. You can get us on YouTube, Rumble, and Patriot TV. He's the guy with the wild hair. That's Steve Hook. I'm Tom Del Beccaro. I love saying that. I like the fact that you're on this show with crazier hair and longer hair than me.
It's not going to be long forever. I'm going to go.
Are you telling us that you're taking the wig off? What does that mean? All right.
It's all real.
We'll be back soon, or right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to Del Beccaro and Hook. I'm pleased today to be joined, or we are, with my good friend Luis, and more importantly, very knowledgeable Luis Alvarado. He's currently a principal at Brisa Del Mar Strategies, which provides government and public policy relations in California, but You've probably seen him on TV. He does CNN, Espanol, Telemundo, and full disclosure, when I ran against Kamala Harris in 2015, he was my consultant, or I guess one of my consultants, I can't remember. But the reason we're having him here today is because we're still doing this post-election analysis with an eye towards the future. What is it? What did the last election tell us about the future? And for my money, there's no one in the United States who knows more about the Latino vote than Luis Alvarado. So, Luis, welcome to the show today. How are you doing?
Thank you. It's great to be invited. It's good to see you. And hello, amigo Steve.
Hello, Luis. Good to have you, my friend.
So, Luis, you know this better than I do. All the talk about, quote, the Latino vote and where it's going and, you know, why did they vote in greater numbers? All of those things. From my personal perspective as a historian, I try not to like run away with single election results, right? We're in the middle of the action here. It's hard to know how big the battle is, right? When you're standing at the very middle of it. So what was your takeaway from the vote? It was a large vote for Trump, no debate about that. What was your main takeaway from that?
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. In 2016, I was on national TV with a Spanish language news station, being the Republican spokesperson versus the Democrat consultant when Donald Trump was elected the first time. And I remember getting a phone call from friends that both you and I know that were in the war room at the Republican side. And they were telling me early on that they couldn't believe the results they were watching and that they felt that Donald Trump could have won. And I shared that with a producer at the time, and he was bewildered because all his graphics were ready to go for Hillary. And he trusted me, and he's changed his graphics. And sure enough, within a few hours, we're celebrating Donald Trump. The Democrat consultant was also in tears, and she had brought a case of champagne, and she took it back. But it was a great surprise. Somehow, I was back at that same TV station in a few weeks ago. Different consultant, but I was talking to the group, and I was telling them, hey, last time we were surprised that Donald Trump won. As a matter of fact, pretty much everybody would tell you the Trump campaign was surprised that they won. But there was no surprise this time because we were watching it carefully, and I was not surprised to see that the Latino vote was morphing, was changing. Things that you and I were working on when you were chair of the party in California, that I was trying to beat the side of the head of the Republican Party to understand that the future, the political future of this country is related to the Latino growth. And, that's why we came up with Grow Elect, because that's how you grow the electorate. The electorate is growing. You have to talk to the people that show up to vote. And what I saw, first and foremost, is that Latinos, we were saying we're not monolithic. They were a large voting group, but we're not monolithic. And day by day, we see that happens to be more and more visible, that we're actually joining general population trends, right? And the general population trends, that the messaging that was built for general population also transcends and impacts the Latino vote because, first of all, to vote, you have to be a U.S. citizen. So we're not talking about all Latinos. We're talking about U.S. citizen voting Latinos, which is different than the rest of the conglomerate. So when you do a poll on Latinos, they include all the Latinos, but all Latinos don't vote. So you have to talk, you talk to, possible expected voters for a certain election, different from a presidential to a midterm election. So, in the presidential, the young people are going to come out and vote much more than the midterm. And what we saw is the young Latino male is the one that gave the variation that gave Trump greater strength.
Yeah.
So back in the day, when you and I were hanging out with Univision and looking at the polls, I was always struck by the fact that the number one issue for Latinos, or the top issues, were jobs, the economy, public safety, education, and healthcare, which is what the top issues for. Yeah. And you and I together, remember, we did the first ever Latino town hall on Univision for the Republican Party in California. We wound up doing 2 of them. Then the RNC did one. And you and I stressed the fact that if you only talk to one person one time or send a mail, you have to be in their lives, right? You have to communicate with them consistently. So are Republicans starting to do a better job at that? And most importantly, and then Steve will ask the next question is, are these results repeatable in 4 years for Republicans? Because I understand their attraction to Trump, but what about the next person who's got to come along and introduce themselves?
Yeah, or the lower ballot ticket that they have to vote on. The answer is yes. They've always been attainable. You just have to modulate your message, and then you have to deliver.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. That's why I see you and I have seen presidential administrations fail at the midterm because their promises were not delivered, or they were there's always an X factor, but politicians are judged by the success. They ask for the vote because they want the job, and if the employer, being the electorate, doesn't feel they are delivering, they're going to let them know. So it's a tricky question, Tom, and I'll tell you why. Because you have 2 promises on this administration, and like it or not, the entire party is tied to Donald Trump, and that's the reality. So the question is, if Donald Trump doesn't seem to do well, every other Republican now will not do well. If Donald Trump and his administration does great, then every Republican can claim that victory. So I'm saying this because I'm getting to the juicy part. The juicy part is that on one side, Trump promised that he's going to fix the economy. Everybody felt the pain of the inflation. They're scared of their milk and gas prices skyrocketing, and young people want to have an opportunity to the Golden Gate. The problem is, on the other side, you have Steve Miller, who is now Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, saying we're going to have these mass deportations. We're going to take away citizens' rights, and he's even talking about reversing people who became citizens. So on one side of the mouth, he's saying, "Well, I'm going to help you guys," but the other side of the mouth, he says he's going to, I'm going to go after you. So the question is he going to be true to the promises that he's going to make life better, or is he going to be true to the promise that he's going to have these massive million people deportation, which actually is going to screw up the economy, right? So people who voted for Trump remember when he ran for office the last time, and this is the key part, guys. He said a lot of things that people just now discount. Oh, that's just Trump being Trump, because he's going to say a lot of things, but then they're not going to happen, because we know it can't happen. The question is that Trump still going to show up and make things a little bit better, or are those promises of Stephen Miller actually going to materialize?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, Luis. Welcome to the program, and I'm glad that you joined us today. You said something in the first segment there when you were talking about how sometimes Latinos, especially from the Democrat Party, although it must be said that it's true of both parties, look at various groups as blocks and almost become monolithic. And but the funny thing is, and Tom touched on this too, was that when questioned, when polled, what did they concern themselves with? Well, they concerned themselves with the economy. They concerned themselves with inflation. They concerned themselves with job growth, making their families stronger, making their dreams more accessible. You know what? You know another group that fell into that category? Black males.
Yeah.
So young black males, the same exact thing, which, if we're going to be honest, that's everybody in the country has these same concerns. I'm wondering if the days of the monolithic block thinking with these parties is going to give way to more of a Trumpian, hey, let's put America first, and more importantly, Americans first, regardless of ethnicity, race, and all that other BS identity politics stuff that the Democrats have leaned on for the last several decades. Trump seems to have addressed that, and I really think it's working for him. I certainly hope the Republicans, I mean, the Republican Party has flipped as far as our base is concerned, and the Democrats have lost a lot of that because of this very subject.
Well, like I said at the beginning, if he delivers and he makes the economy better for everybody, right? Not like just a top 1%, like the Democrats claim, then things are going to get great. If the crime goes down, police are given the opportunity to do the job that they were sworn in to do. If young people feel that they have access to the American dream, then I'm going to tell you, Republicans are going to be in office for a very long time. They meaning both parties, they have to figure out also something else. And you talk about blocks, and in the past, and I'm talking about like 50, 100 years ago, when people depended to, they went to vote, they needed the parties to vet the candidates for them. They had no other source of information other than the party mechanism. Now we have podcasts like the ones we're on right now, hundreds of other media outlets where people don't have to go to one source to get their information, and they get more detailed information, so they get a better opportunity to make better decisions on which candidates are more aligned with their beliefs and their aspirations.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Luis. I'll follow up when you're
yeah.
done.
So I think the parties have to be cognizant that you can't just whip out 4 message line taglines and hope that that's going to get your candidates to office. You actually have to do the work.
Yeah, you have to deliver. So let me ask you this. Everybody is well aware of what's happened the last 4 years. The southern border has been swung wide open. It's flooded the zone. We got problems with this Venezuelan gang everywhere. Crime is on the rise in almost every urban center across the fruited plain. And this, of course, shows, in my mind anyway, shows the simplistic approach of Democrats, thinking that, oh, the Hispanic and the Latino vote is going to love us because we've just invited everybody in. This has kind of rebounded against them, hasn't it?
Well, I'll caution you to be too simplistic about it as well.
Yeah.
And the fact is, you have to ask yourself, who's showing up at the border? Very important. 30 years ago, it was more people from Mexico that came in. And because the Mexican economy and the Mexican corruption and the crime and all that didn't give an opportunity for Mexicans to have a ladder to success. So they came here. Mexico is now very prosperous. As a matter of fact, it overtook Germany in economy. It overtook a few months ago from China to be the number 1 partner of trading partner of the United States. Mexico's doing well. So Mexicans don't want to come here. Mexicans are doing just fine in Mexico because those policies that help unite and strengthen the relationships between Mexico and the U.S. are working. They're successful. So the people that are showing up at the border are not Mexicans. Most of the people, the Latino communities that are here, 2nd, 3rd generations that are now Americans, are Mexican descent, don't have that connection to Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, Hondurans, Haitians, for that matter, or anybody else who shows up at the border. So, and there's a saying in the Latino community, there's a saying that, well, we're here now, so let's close the door behind us because we're cool now. And there's a little bit of that. But the point is that I'm trying to make is the people that are showing up because there's issues in Venezuela. The Venezuela screwed up. We need to figure out how to stop people from coming here in the first place, because I think we need to take responsibility for the hemisphere. I mean, to a certain degree, I know there's a sentiment that we want to be more isolationist and be protective of the U.S. But if we don't take care of the stuff that we built that help keep the border secure in comparison to 30 years ago, we're going to have more than one caravan. We're going to have 20 caravans. So I want to be cautious about that. I want to make sure that we take care of the things that work, like the relationship with Mexico, that Trump, as a matter of fact, signed the treaty when he was president. And, that stuff works. The stuff we're seeing now is people from further south. We need to figure out how to stop those guys from coming over here.
Yeah, so if you remember when I ran, we said 2 or 3 things. One, that the solution to world poverty is not an open U.S. border. I was insistent when we talked. I said in the nuclear terrorist age, you can't have a completely open border, right?
Yeah, we're a sovereign state. We got to protect our sovereignty. That's understood.
And the reason why I thought it was valuable to approach it in that manner is, and the third thing was that the violence along the border because of the cartels is an issue for which everybody, Latinos, are concerned about that too. It's not like it's their brothers and sisters, if you will, that are facing the brunt of that. And I thought we should approach it in that regard in a cooperative manner and get to a better place. And now, as you point out, it's a different group that's doing this. But I think if the Trump administration explains really what's going on and why, as you describe it, the new dynamic and how we can approach this in a cooperative manner, I think you can say this new voting trend, because to me it's a trend. It's not a realignment yet. I think if they approach it that way and show results and start with deporting the gangs instead of showing up at people's houses, I think they could make a big success out of this.
Absolutely. The other thing is, going back to the voting block, it's gelatinous. It's fluid. It's still fluid. It moved in one direction. And that's what I was saying earlier. If you have the capacity to demonstrate success and strength, then it's going to solidify. It's still baking, man. It's still in the oven. It baked. It came out. It worked for you, but you still have to bake it some more, and you have to deliver. And that's why I was talking about, the example of the relationship with. As a matter of fact, if I recall correctly, the guy in charge of making that pact, the trading deal with Mexico, was Jared and Ivanka were big proponents of that, and and I don't know if we're going to have the same people in the White House with the same sentiment who actually have an understanding of the trade opportunities we have, and not let them go to waste. So those are my concerns, with the Latino vote, because if Latinos start seeing that, that certain policy maneuvers, I'll call them that, or policy actions hurt the economy, then there's going to be question about competency in regards to what they deliver as administrators in the White House.
Real quick on California, not a lot of private sector jobs between January of 2022 and June of this year. Only 5,400 jobs. The raise in the minimum wage has resulted in a loss of 6,000 fast food jobs. The world should know that the number one demographic for business startups or two is always Latinos. So is there a shift in California because the government's not helping them with jobs.
Well, it's interesting, and this is from personal experience, is as Latinos become more part of the fabric of the American working force, and the business start to grow, they become savvy. They realize, if I just move my business 4 hours away to Vegas, I don't have to pay taxes, and I can still run deliveries in California, right? So they're getting savvy to understanding that it's California policies that are against the working startups. It's California taxation that inhibits people from having a sense of growth, and that's why you see not only Caucasian or general population moving to Texas and Idaho, but you see Latinos, saying I can get better schools for my children in Texas. And, I can't tell you how many people I see. My brother-in-law moved to Colorado. He says, it's better in Colorado. Hurry up, come over here.
Yeah.
And
And I must say, Luis, before we let you go, because we want to thank you for the time that you've given us so far, I want to circle back to something that you guys both kind of touched on, and that is what's going on with the cartels. Do you think that the general Latino thoughts on this are, because Trump has talked about perhaps putting these cartels, whether it's the Jalisco cartel or whoever it may be, on the terrorist watch list in order to go after them. Do you think Sheinbaum in Mexico and the Mexican and general Mexican residents would agree to that? Because that cartel, I mean, I'm glad to hear that Mexico's economy is coming around, but those cartels are still a real threat, and they are just a corruption racket that affect local politicians and local little towns and places in Mexico. Do you think that more needs to be done concerning the cartels?
Yes, but I strongly believe that it has to be done through the Mexican government. There's a new Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, just got elected and took office a few weeks ago, and she has a plan for that. But it's we can't go into, like we said, if we want Mexico to respect our sovereignty and our borders, we need to respect their sovereignty and their borders as well. So we need to find commonality and figure out the problem with our number one trading partner, which is Mexico.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Luis, thanks so much for joining us. I think this is an obvious, you and I have been discussing this for at least a decade, right? So this isn't, we're not going to resolve anything today. This is, as you said, a fluid situation. I appreciate you giving your thoughts today. Everyone, thanks so much for tuning into this segment. You should send this to your friends, because there's a lot of deep thought in this particular segment. It's been Luis Alvarado, and we'll be back with Del Beccaro and Hook right after this. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. A lot to think about there. And I also hope my book, The Lessons of the American Civilization, you will buy that as a Christmas gift. In fact, I know Steve bought 300 copies himself to distribute to all of his friends. That would be 150 for each friend that he has. But I still appreciate him working so hard for me. So consider buying that book.
It's a great book.
It
is a good book.
Thank you. All right. So I think it's time. I could be wrong, Steve, for another episode of LLI. That's liberals losing it.
Indeed. And they are losing it, Tom. I mean, I tell you, that's one thing that I did enjoy when we took the week off was just sitting back and watching them melt. And they are melting at record pace here. We've got a couple of clips here that we should get to. You mentioned you won't say Charlemagne. You won't say the rest of his name. But we've got a clip from him. And he's on your favorite show, The View.
Which I've never watched. I want you to know. I've never seen it.
The only time I've ever watched The View, if I'm honest, is when I'm sitting in a dentist waiting room. Other than that, I have never watched that show. I've never put that channel on. But I did find this clip amusing because Charlemagne he's basically calling out the Democrats. And he's saying, look, you're making us all look stupid. And the ladies at The View, the yentas around the table, didn't like hearing that. Shockingly, but here it is. Charlemagne the God with the ladies on The View.
Let me ask you something that's going around right now. A lot of this conversation about President Biden getting criticized from both sides of the aisle for pardoning his son Hunter after repeatedly saying he would never do it. And a lot of people are saying that it's hypocritical, et cetera, as if the other side doesn't do it. But what's your reaction to it?
I mean, I think all of the criticism is valid because, Democrats stand on this moral high ground all the time. And, they act so self-righteous. The reality is he didn't have to say anything in regards to, whether or not, his son wanted to be pardoned. He could have said, hey, man, I'm not focused on that right now. But since they were calling Trump a threat to democracy and they were saying that, nobody's above the law, but they were speaking about him, that's what they were running on. So when he kept saying things like, nobody's above the law, I respect, the jury's decision in regards to my son, he didn't believe that. But he didn't have to volunteer that lie to begin with.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Uh-oh.
Only because you don't know that it was a lie. We don't know why he changed
You really think he just changed his mind over Thanksgiving weekend all of a sudden?
I'm going to tell you what I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think he changed his mind because he got sick of watching everybody else get over.
What an absolute, I mean, there's
Get over on
cognitive dissonance.
What? Who got over?
Yeah, I mean, Tom, the old term cognitive dissonance, it's one thing to be willfully blind, but to be willfully stupid is just beyond the pale. I mean, who got over? Yeah, that's a good point. What is she talking about?
I know Steve Bannon didn't get over, and Peter Navarro didn't get over.
Roger Stone
didn't get over. They had the SWAT teams sent to their homes. Paul Manafort, didn't get over. He went through hell for a considerable period of time. Yeah, I'm not saying Manafort was innocent of everything ever to come, but where's the reality? Who's getting over? I'm sorry, the Bidens got over on us.
Yeah.
They made millions, right? So, yeah, she's completely out there. But, this Charlemagne guy, and I'm not talking about the Emperor Charlemagne, who I mentioned in my book, by the way. I know you know that.
Yes.
In the last chapter, actually, I looking ahead, anyway, fine point of it is he calls him as he sees him. And this is, anybody really thought, and I know you have this next clip, who really thought Biden, had an epiphany on Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, she'd gone on. Whoopi went on to say that the only reason they went after Hunter was because of his last name, which is one of the biggest jokes ever. It's like, lady, have you not?
The guy didn't pay taxes for a decade.
Yeah. All you need to do, folks, and we encourage you to get Tom's book because it's wonderful. But if you really want to get to the bottom of what's going on with the Biden international family of grift, read any of Peter Schweitzer's book, Secret Dynasties. He spells it all out, and it's obvious. I think this pardon of Hunter wasn't so much because it was a father who loves his son, but it was a father who loves his own freedom and his brother's freedom and everybody else's. This was a blanket pardon of the entire Biden crime family. And they're trying to play it out as if this is just a guy who loves his son. Yeah, he loves his son so much that he watched him turn into an addict and yet still sent him to Burisma, still sent him to China, still made money hand over fist. I just don't buy that argument at all. I think it's patently laughable.
Yeah. So, all right. So this next clip, why don't you intro that, and we'll talk. We'll keep going.
Yeah, absolutely, because we love watching liberals lose it. And this is another one. Now, I want to set this up. This is a podcast called Pod Save America. And one of the guys on the podcast, I don't know if he's actually in this clip, is John Favreau. I've met John a couple of times. He's actually a pretty nice guy. He's a hard lefty, but he's a fairly nice guy, and he will talk to you reasonably. But they're losing it on Pod Save America. Check this.
President Biden lied and repeatedly lied and said he wouldn't pardon Hunter or commute a sentence. He had his press secretary lie on his behalf. Biden's supporters held up Joe Biden's refusal to pardon Hunter as an example of his commitment to the rule of law in contrast with Trump. But NBC News reported that when they decided to put this out there and say that that Biden wasn't going to pardon his son, actually Biden and his top aides knew that it was still an open question. And so now everyone looks stupid. Everyone looks like they're full of shit. And Republicans are going to use this to argue that it was politics as usual when Democrats warned about Trump's corruption or threat to the rule of law or, the threat to democracy. And I think that's the piece of this I am most frustrated with, which is Joe Biden looking like a typical lying politician. And I think that leads to a cynical feeling that all politicians are bad and they're all the same, and that this is just par for the course.
Wait a minute. Am I supposed to understand this is Joe Biden's first lie? How about I finished in the top of my class?
Yeah.
How about I was arrested in South Africa? I mean, this guy's
he marched over the bridge in Selma. That was another classic.
Yeah, he ran for president because Trump, whatever. And he lied about what Trump allegedly said about what happened in South Carolina. So, but look, it isn't just Republicans, by the way, as you point out. Fetterman, who is a unique politician, I think we can say at this stage, even he has been talking about, the Democrats losing it. And by the way, he has, said repeatedly, hasn't he? You need to stop losing it. You can't lose it on every single thing Trump has done. We got 4 years to go.
Yeah. Fetterman is actually starting to, with each and every passing week, he's starting to make more and more sense. I don't think he's ever going to be a Republican much. I don't think that's going to ever happen.
Well, let me ask you a question on that.
Okay.
Because the first big legislative agenda item, they'll close the border with the executive order, but the first big legislative item is making the tax cuts permanent, Social Security exemption, which, by the way, has always been ludicrous to me. So let me get this straight. You give them the money, and then that they paid in. They were already taxed. You took that money. Now you're sending it to them, and then you want them to send some of it back. But and I don't know if you remember the scene in Casablanca where Rick's talking to Mr. Gutman, and Rick says that you didn't give me all my cigarettes, and he calls it carrying charges, right? As to why he lost. Yeah. It was a little light. So the government has carrying charges, waste all this money in the process, right? But does Fetterman vote for the tax bill?
Well, I tell you what, given the way we just saw this last election play out in Pennsylvania, he damn near may. He may well. Yeah, and there's other Democrats that are getting a little bit waffly on this hard left wokeism that has just infected that party. Moskowitz is saying he wants to play ball with the guys in Doge. So once you start seeing some of that, maybe it'll turn into, I don't know, Tom, you tell me, is this going to be a domino effect where Fetterman falls and Moskowitz falls and then maybe a couple of others come around? Because they've got to get away from this identity politics, though I don't know that they have it within them to do that.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't surprise me if none of them voted for the tax cuts. And by the way, every American taxpayer got a tax cut with the last Trump deal. The bottom bracket moved from 15 to 10%. And I'm not one who thinks it's a good public policy. One of the books over my shoulder, The Divided Era. If you want to divide society, there it is, do we have a great producer or what? Half of Americans pay almost no income tax, and the top 1% pay 42%. Okay, maybe that's your idea of good policy, but the collateral damage from that policy is intense division. And ancient Greek democracy died among class warfare. The Roman Republic died among class warfare. And our tax code promotes class warfare. So, but it wouldn't surprise me if all the Democrats voted against this. And I think that hurts them, because even the lowest rung got a tax cut, and the Republicans need to go out there and said that the Democrats wanted to raise taxes on the lowest, those with the least income in the tax code.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and it's true. That's the thing. I mean, yeah, that's of course that's the argument that always is fallen back on by the left, isn't it, Tom? He's giving tax cuts to the richest Americans. It's like, oh, wait a damn minute. I noticed it, and I'm certainly not in the top 1, 2, or even 5%, and I noticed it. So if that's the path they want to go down, good luck selling it. I mean, the one thing that they've got in their corner and will have in their corner is they've got the media, lock, stock, and barrel. At least most of the media. So maybe that's what they're counting on. But not only are the Democrats' numbers circling the drain, but the media's numbers have been circling the drain. So I don't know that plays as well as it used to.
Well, no, and again, they need to sell this. I mean, are the Democrats really going to vote against a bill that exempts tips, a bill that exempts Social Security? You know, and by the way, the greatest threat to Social Security is a weak economy, and so they're going to vote against these tax cuts. You know, the CBO ludicrously comes out and says, "Oh, the tax cuts won't help grow the economy." Whatever. They've said that. They said that about Reagan cuts. They said this earlier about the Trump cuts. The economy did grow, revenues rose, they didn't fall. This is the same sort of thing, and they won't get away from that, because they're big government proponents. And the Democrats, they're big government proponents. And the reason why they're going to have a hard time making a comeback is because they don't, unless it's a government program, they don't know what to do. They don't have nothing to offer people, and people want jobs.
Well, and you know, to that point, that is exactly what I've always said about Democrats. Democrats need to be needed. And if you no longer need them, they're left up the creek without a paddle. So they're gonna continue to fall back on the tax cuts for the richest and blah, blah, blah BS. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. And, you know, when you couple those tax cuts, Tom, with Doge, as we were just talking about, we could be looking at a brand new dynamic that comes into play here. And that is, look how much money Donald Trump has saved America, not to mention your family. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I'm sure the Democrats are a little bit nervous.
Absolutely. So I think we're winding up here. Why don't you send us home?
I'm glad you said that, Tom. We've tried to sell your book, and by God, I'm sure we've sold lots of copies of it, because it's a great book to throw under the tree. But you know what else is good? How about if we introduce the donor deck to you? It's a limited edition collectible that's more than just a deck of cards, but it is a fine deck of cards. I mean, it features some beautifully hand-drawn art. Donald Trump, he's a king. Imagine that. Melania Trump, she's a queen. Guess what position Joe Biden has in the deck, Tom? Joker. He's a Joker, but of course. And this is all beautifully hand-drawn art of Trump, Melania, Joe Biden, Don Jr., Eric. I'm sure they're probably Jack's. Even Jack Smith gets in on the mix. He's probably the second Joker. It's got an engraved case with number 45 and 47 on it. Of course, the 45th administration and the 47th. A premium metal challenge coin and holder is also included. Stunningly crafted face cards to enjoy with your family and friends next time you play a game of, I don't know, spades or something. 100% of all profits support MAGA Incorporated and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. Directly funding the fight for America's future. So who could argue with that? You can get yours today at patriot.tv/DHED, and make sure you use that promo code DHED. That's Del Beccaro Hook Enlightened Dissent, DHED, and you'll get exclusive discounts. Act fast now, because you want to put these in some stockings, right? Or maybe under the tree. This is your chance to own that collectible symbolizing freedom, values, and most importantly, probably action, which is what we need to take. So there you go. A great holiday gift idea for you. A couple of them, Tom's book and the donor deck here. Go check it out. Tom,
right,
I
so
think
we're
that's
gonna-
going to do it, man. Until next time,
We'll see
right?
you all next week. Wait a minute. Are you getting a haircut between now and then?
I am.
Or no?
All right, let me give you a little preview.
Oh, no. Put the hair back. Everybody, Del Beccaro and Hook, Patriot TV, YouTube, and Rumble, thanks so much for joining us today.
Goodbye.